The twin moons of Velmora hung high in the violet sky as the royal city prepared for its biggest celebration in 50 years. Colorful banners floated in the air, strange birds sang from golden towers, and the people of many worlds gathered in the shining capital to witness the choosing ceremony of Princess Nira. Nira stood near the balcony of her private chamber, looking at the crowd far below. She wore a long blue robe with silver lines that shimmered like water. Her face was calm, but her heart felt heavy. The choosing ceremony was tradition. It was the moment when the sacred crystal would select her future life partner. Someone the ancient power deemed worthy of ruling beside her. But Nira didn't want a stranger chosen by an old stone. She turned to her attendant, an older woman named Maya. "Do I really have no say in this?" Nira asked quietly. Maya bowed her head. "The crystal chooses with wisdom, Princess. It has never failed." Nira gave a small nod, though her mind disagreed. She had trained in diplomacy, history, and science. She had visited other planets and seen how their leaders married by choice, not magic. But here on Velmora, tradition ruled over feeling. Meanwhile, far from the palace, a small ship from Earth landed in the docking zone. Earth was not a powerful world compared to others, but its people were slowly gaining respect across the stars. Most of the Earth delegation wore clean uniforms, and among them walked a quiet man named Leo. Leo wasn't a soldier or a leader. He was just a communication technician. He came along to help fix Earth's translation systems and make sure all devices worked properly during the event. "Try not to break anything," joked his teammate, Juno, handing him a toolkit. "I'll try," Leo replied with a half smile. He liked machines more than people. They were simpler. He didn't care much about alien politics or royal ceremonies. He just wanted to do his job and go home. Back at the palace, the grand hall was ready. Hundreds of guests filled the round space, sitting on floating seats arranged, like petals around the glowing center. Beings of all shapes and colors chatted in excitement. The royal council sat at the highest level, watching everything. At the center of the hall stood a tall pedestal, and on it a crystal floated. It was large, clear, and pulsing with gentle light. This was the heart of Velmora, said to be connected to the minds and spirit of the royal bloodline. Princess Nira walked into the hall with slow, graceful steps. A golden circlet rested on her head, and behind her walked Maya and two guards. The music faded and silence filled the chamber as all eyes turned to her. She placed her hands under the crystal. The light grew brighter. As tradition demanded, the crystal would scan the gathered beings, nobles, warriors, diplomats, and choose the one who had the strongest bond of destiny with the princess. It began to spin slowly. One name after another appeared in glowing text, showing candidates, but the crystal rejected them all. Suddenly, the crystal stopped. Its light shot forward like a beam, directly at the upper corner of the hall toward the area reserved for engineers and technicians. A human figure stood there, blinking in confusion. Leo. The crowd gasped. The crystal's light surrounded Leo, lifting him a few inches into the air. Symbols in the air confirmed the result. Chosen match detected. Guards ran toward him. Leo looked terrified. "I didn't do anything," he said as they brought him down to the center. Nira stared at him, confused. This was not a noble warrior. He was not even part of the ceremony. He looked ordinary. The High Counselor Velrin stepped forward. "This must be a mistake." The crystal never makes mistakes, Maya reminded gently. But he is human, another council member whispered. Earth is still considered primitive in some sectors. The crystal pulsed again, as if to repeat its message. Leo stood beside Nira now, awkwardly. He looked up at her. She was taller than he expected, and her eyes held both strength and sadness. I don't know why it picked me, he said softly. Nira didn't answer. She just looked at him, trying to understand. The hall filled with noise. Some people angry, others curious. Velren raised a hand. The ceremony is over for today. The council will review this unusual outcome. The lights dimmed. Guards led Leo away, gently but firmly. Later, Nira sat in her chamber once more. The night sky was clear, and the stars above Velmora twinkled peacefully. But peace was far from her heart. Why did the crystal choose a human? A technician, not a warrior or leader? Something felt different this time, and deep inside, she sensed that the ceremony had not ended, but had just begun. Far away, Leo sat, alone in a guest room under watch. He looked at his hands, still unsure if what happened was real. Why me? He whispered to himself. The answer was out there, hidden in fate, waiting to unfold. The sun rose slowly over the silver towers of Velmora. The royal city looked calm, but inside the palace, nothing was calm anymore. The choosing ceremony had ended in shock. A human technician named Leo had been selected by the sacred crystal to become Princess Nira's future partner. Many said it was a mistake. Others called it a sign of a forgotten prophecy. But one thing was clear. Velmora had never seen anything like this before. In the council chamber, the elders and royal advisors sat in a circle. Their faces were serious. Princess Nira stood in the center, her hands folded, her eyes calm but alert. The crystal has never made an error, said High Counselor Velren, his voice deep and sharp. But never in our history has it chosen an outsider, especially a human. He's not even a warrior, whispered another council member. He fixes machines. That's true, Nira replied softly. But he didn't ask to be chosen. The crystal picked him. Exactly, Velran said. That's why we must understand why. Meanwhile, Leo sat in a quiet chamber inside the palace, guarded by 2 soldiers in golden armor. The room was large, but he felt small inside it. A table of alien fruits and drinks sat untouched. He had barely slept. His mind replayed the moment, again and again, when the crystal's light chose him, when everyone stared, when the guards took him away. I just came to fix communication wires, he muttered to himself. Now I'm part of some alien royal marriage plan? A soft chime rang at the door. The guard stepped aside, and Princess Nira entered the room. Leo stood up quickly. Princess? I mean, Your Highness. Or is it Queen-to-be? I'm not sure how this works. Nira smiled a little. You can just call me Nira for now. Leo nodded, his hands behind his back, unsure what to say. Nira looked around the room, then sat across from him. I wanted to meet you without the council, she said. Everyone is talking. Most of them are angry. Some are afraid. I understand, Leo said. Honestly, I don't want to cause problems. I didn't ask for this. I know. I believe you. Nira paused. That's why I came. I want to understand who you are. They spoke for almost an hour. Nira asked him about his life on Earth, his job, and why he joined the delegation. Leo told her simple truths, how he loved machines, how he preferred fixing things to fighting, how he didn't believe in fate or magic. And yet, Nira said softly, the crystal chose you. Leo looked down. Maybe the crystal's broken. Nira smiled again. I used to think everything in this palace was perfect. Now I'm not so sure, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Before she left, Nira looked at him seriously. The council wants to test you, to make sure the crystal didn't choose you by mistake. There will be questions, scans, even spirit readings. Leo sighed. More tests? I thought I left that behind in school. Nira chuckled. Welcome to Velmora. In the days that followed, Leo became the center of attention. Scientists scanned his brain and blood. Historians searched ancient records. Priests examined the energy flow between him and the crystal. Some results were strange, others were clear. One result stood out. The bond between Leo and the crystal was real. No trick, no hack, no mistake. Still, many citizens were not happy. News spread across the planet. Velmoran nobles argued on media screens. Some said the ceremony must be repeated. Others warned that human influence would ruin tradition. A noble named Vorin, tall and proud, spoke loudly on every channel. This human is not one of us. He holds no title, no power, no skill in leadership. We cannot allow our future queen to be tied to someone who cannot protect her or our world. Many agreed with him, but some, especially younger voices, spoke differently. 1. Student broadcasted, maybe that's the point. Maybe it's time we choose someone kind, not just powerful. In the palace, Nira continued visiting Leo. They walked in the gardens. They watched the stars from the tower. Slowly, they began to understand each other. Leo didn't try to impress her. He just listened, asked questions, and spoke honestly. You don't act like a princess, he said once, as they sat by a quiet lake. And you don't act like someone chosen by fate, she replied. They both laughed. Still, pressure grew. The council demanded a final review. The people wanted answers. One morning, Nira stood before the council again. I believe the crystal did not choose Leo by accident, she said clearly. It chose him because he is different. Not from here, not full of pride, but full of something else. Humility. That's rare among leaders. Velron frowned. But will he fight? Will he lead armies if needed? Maybe not, Nira said. But he will protect what matters. That night, Leo received a message from Nira. You don't have to become my groom. Not if you don't want to. I will speak for you. I will break tradition if I must. Leo read it twice, then slowly typed back. I didn't come here to be a prince, but I don't run away from what's right. If I can help you, truly help, you have my support. Nira smiled when she read it. Outside, the winds of Velmora changed direction, softly but surely. The palace looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, things were growing tense. Whispers traveled through the high halls like wind through dry leaves. Some nobles were unhappy, others were afraid. The choosing ceremony had made one thing clear. Velmora's future was now uncertain. Princess Nira walked through the garden path alone, her thoughts heavy. Every day since the ceremony, she had talked to Leo, the human who had been chosen by the sacred crystal. He was simple, honest, and thoughtful. He didn't act like a leader, yet something about him made her feel calm. Still, she knew that many in the court didn't trust him. Some said he was too weak. Others said he had tricked the crystal. Some believed it was all part of a secret Earth plan to gain power over Velmora. Nira stopped near a tall tree with glowing blue leaves. She looked up at the sky and sighed. "Why did the crystal choose him?" she whispered. At the same time, in another part of the palace, Vorin, a high noble and skilled commander, stood in front of a large screen. His face was sharp and his eyes burned with anger. "The council is doing nothing," he said to the hooded man beside him. "They sit and wait while this human plays games with our future." The hooded man said nothing. He only nodded. Vorin turned around. "I was meant to be chosen. Everyone knows it. My bloodline, my training, no one is more worthy." He walked to a table where a hologram showed the human's face. "I will not let our world be ruled by a technician from a backwater planet." The hooded man finally spoke. "Then we begin the plan?" Vorin's eyes narrowed. "Yes. If the council won't remove him, we will, quietly." That evening, Leo sat in a small study room inside the palace. The room was filled with old scrolls, tech manuals, and soft blue lights. He was trying to learn about Velmoran customs and history. Nira had given him reading material, saying, "If you're going to be part of this world, you should know its heart." He looked at one scroll. It showed a story about a past queen who had also made a strange choice, marrying a soldier instead of a prince. The people were angry at first, but in time they saw her wisdom. "Maybe there's hope after all," Leo said to himself. Suddenly, the lights flickered. He looked up. Something felt off. He stepped into the hallway. It was empty and too quiet. Then he saw two guards lying on the floor, not hurt badly, but unconscious. A sound behind him. Leo turned quickly. A shadow moved. He ran. Back in the council room, Nira was speaking to High Counselor Velrin. "I want the public to see the truth," she said. "Leo is not a threat. He is a guest, one chosen by the crystal. If we hide him, we only feed their fear." Velron looked concerned. "Words may not be enough, Princess. There are those who will act in darkness. Not all battles are fought in open light." At that moment, a message came through. One of the palace watchers had seen an alert in the East Wing. Possible breach. Guards down. Human guest missing. Nira's heart froze. Leo ran through the silent hallways. He didn't know the palace well, but he remembered some of the paths. Nira had shown him. His breath was fast. His legs ached. Then he turned a corner and stopped. 3 masked figures stood ahead, dressed in black armor. Their weapons were not royal. They looked like off-world tech. Leo turned back, but 2 more blocked the way. One stepped forward. "You were never meant to be chosen." Leo raised his hands. "I don't want to fight. I didn't ask for any of this." "We don't care what you want," the masked one said. "You will leave or vanish." Just then, a bright light flashed from above. Nira dropped down from a floating platform with 2 royal guards beside her. Her voice was strong. No one touches him! The guards fought fast. One masked man was knocked down. The others tried to escape, but one was caught. The rest vanished into the shadows. Leo stood frozen. Nira rushed to him. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No. But who were they?" "Mercenaries," she said. "Not local. Someone paid them." Leo looked at her. "Someone wants me gone." "Yes," Nira said quietly. "And I think I know who." Later that night, Nira sat in her room with Velron. She showed him the captured attacker. The man wore a device marked with the symbol of Vorin's private fleet. This is proof, Nira said. Voreen is trying to remove Leo with violence. Velron nodded slowly. This changes everything. The council must act. In the garden, Leo sat with a bandage on his arm. Nira joined him. You could have been hurt, she said. So could you, Leo replied. She looked at him. You didn't run far. You could have hidden. Leo smiled faintly. Running away doesn't fix things. I learned that on Earth. Nira looked at him carefully. She saw no fear in his eyes, only quiet strength. Thank you, she said. For what? For not giving up? Far away in a hidden chamber, Vorin stood watching the night sky. They saved him, said the hooded man. Vorin clenched his fist. Then we move to the next step. I will not lose to a human. The next morning, the palace guards were doubled. Watchtowers scanned the skies and shadows. Every entrance was locked with advanced security codes. What had happened to Leo last night was not just an attack, it was a message. And that message was clear. The human is not welcome, but Princess Nira had made her decision. She would not let fear or pride guide Velmora's future. She would stand by the crystal's choice, even if others refused to accept it. Inside the palace, Nira walked into the training grounds where Leo was waiting. He stood in the center, wearing a simple training suit holding a small wooden staff. His movements were slow and clumsy. You're here early, Nira said, smiling. I couldn't sleep, Leo replied. Thought I'd try to learn something before breakfast. Nira picked up another staff and stepped beside him. Then let's begin. Lesson 1. Never let your feet freeze. She moved quickly. Leo tried to block, but she tapped his leg gently. He lost balance. I see what you mean, he muttered. Over the next hour, Nira trained him in basic defense. Leo was not fast or strong, but he paid attention. He asked good questions. He didn't give up. Every time he fell, he stood again. You're not bad, Nira said after their session ended. Thanks, Leo replied, breathing hard. Though I think my arms will fall off tomorrow. They sat down near the training platform. The morning sun warmed their faces. Why are you doing this? Nira asked. Leo looked at her. Because if someone comes after you again, I want to be ready. I know I can't fight like your guards, but I can try. Nira was quiet for a moment. You don't have to prove anything. I know, Leo said. But I want to earn my place here, even if I wasn't born for it. Far across the city, Vorin stood in a dark chamber surrounded by his private commanders. The failure of the first attack had cost him support, but not his ambition. The people are watching, said one of his aides. We must act carefully. Vorin stared at the glowing map of Velmora. We don't need another attack. We need fear. Fear spreads faster than fire. He tapped on a location near the outer energy grid. Cause a blackout in Sector 8, he ordered. Blame it on human tech. Let them see what happens when we welcome weakness. His aide hesitated. That sector holds schools and hospitals. Vorin's eyes turned cold. Exactly. Later that evening, as lights glowed over Velmora's skyline, Sector 8 suddenly went dark. The floating transports stopped. Communication lines failed. Emergency systems flickered. Panic spread fast. Citizens ran into the streets. Parents searched for lost children. The hospitals switched to backup power. Within an hour, news screens across Velmora displayed one message. Human device failure. Council investigates. In the palace, Leo was called to the main hall. Dozens of council members sat in silence as Velren pointed to the screen behind him. This blackout happened just hours ago. The city grid was linked to your delegation's tech. Leo stepped forward. With respect, I only worked on the translation system, not the city's power. Velran raised a brow. Then you are saying someone else did this? I don't know who, Leo said honestly, but I can check the system logs if someone tampered with it. We'll find out. Whispers filled the room. Some nodded. Others still looked suspicious. Then Nira stood. I will go with him, she said. If we want peace, we must trust in truth. That night, Leo and Nira entered the control hub near Sector 8. With her access codes and his technical skill, they broke into the system records. Leo worked fast, typing on a floating panel. Whoever did this used a bypass key, he said. Not from Earth. This signal is from inside Velmora's own command lines. Nira's eyes narrowed. Vorin has his own tech base. Could he have done this? Looks like it, Leo said, pulling up the data. Then a soft alarm rang. We triggered a trace, he said. Someone knows we're inside the system. Outside the hub, quiet footsteps echoed. Time to go, Nira said. They escaped through a maintenance tunnel and returned to the palace. Leo handed the data chip to Velran. This is proof. Someone from inside planned the blackout. Velran took the chip and studied it. If this is true, it will change many things. In the following days, the blackout news changed. The blame shifted away from Earth. People began to ask harder questions. Who wanted to make the human look dangerous? Who feared change so much they would risk innocent lives? In quiet corners of Velmora, support for Leo began to grow. In hidden places, Vorin grew more desperate. One evening, as Nira and Leo sat near the royal lake, she looked at the water's reflection. You've come far in a short time. Leo shrugged. Still feel like I don't belong. But you're still here, Nira said. Even after everything. I guess. I just want to do what's right. Not for the crown. For you. Nira looked at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. You are strange, Leo. I get that a lot. She smiled. Above them, the stars of Velmora twinkled peacefully, but they both knew peace would not last long. The stars above Velmora shone brightly, but the palace was quiet and tense. After the blackout in Sector 8, security had been increased. Guards stood at every entrance. Drones flew across the sky, scanning for threats. But some dangers were not so easy to see. Inside the palace, Leo sat in a quiet chamber, reading from a digital tablet. He had spent the whole day reviewing power records and helping the council find more proof against Vorin. It was exhausting, but he didn't complain. Every time he felt tired, he remembered Nira's words. You're not here by mistake. There was a soft knock on the door. He stood and opened it. Nira stepped inside, her eyes warm but serious. I thought you'd be asleep by now, she said. I tried, Leo said. My brain wouldn't stop working. She smiled. You've changed since the day we met. Yeah, he said. So have you. They sat on a soft bench near the window. Outside, the wind moved through the glowing trees. For a few minutes, they said nothing. It was peaceful. Then the floor shook. A loud boom echoed through the palace. Leo jumped up. What was that? A second explosion followed, closer this time. Red lights flashed. Emergency sirens screamed. Attack! Shouted a guard outside the door. The West Tower has been hit! Nira and Leo ran through the hallway. Smoke filled the air. People shouted, alarms rang, and the palace trembled again as a third explosion hit the eastern gate. Who would attack the palace? Leo asked, his heart racing. Nira's face was set with focus. Only one person has enough power and madness to do this now. Vorin. They turned a corner and found injured guards lying on the ground. Leo knelt beside one, helping lift him to safety. Nira checked another, giving commands to medics arriving behind her. Suddenly, a group of masked fighters entered the hall, weapons raised. "Stay down!" Nira shouted to Leo, pulling her blade. The guards with her began to fight. Blades clashed. Laser shots hit the walls. Leo ducked behind a pillar, looking around for something to help with. He saw a fire control panel nearby. He ran to it, opened the cover, and activated the emergency smoke vents. Thick mist poured into the hallway, blinding the attackers for a moment. "Now!" shouted Nira. Her guards moved quickly, knocking down 2 enemies. The others retreated into the smoke. Leo coughed. "Did that help?" Nira smiled, wiping her blade. "A lot." They moved fast, heading toward the throne room where the royal family and council were being protected. But the attackers had already reached the inner gates. The heavy doors had been blasted open. Inside, Vorin stood with his private soldiers, dressed in black and silver. His eyes were full of anger. "Stop this now, Vorin!" Nira shouted as she stepped forward. "You had your chance, princess," he said coldly. "You chose a human over your own people. Now, Velmora will pay the price for your mistake. This is treason." "No," Vorin said, stepping closer. "This is correction." He raised his hand. His soldiers aimed their weapons. Leo moved. "Beside, Nira, you should leave," he whispered. "I'm not leaving you," she replied. "Then let's do something crazy." Leo grabbed a dropped energy shield from the floor and ran toward the power panel beside the gate. Shots flew around him. Sparks exploded as a beam hit the wall behind him. He dove behind the console and pulled open the wires. He looked for the gate override, then remembered something he had seen during his training with Nira. Blue wire. Red link. He cut one wire and pushed the panel switch. A heavy blast door dropped down from the ceiling between Vorin and the throne room, sealing him out. "Nice work!" Nira shouted. But the fight wasn't over. Some of Vorin's soldiers were still inside. The final battle began in the Great Hall. Nira moved like a windstorm, swift, sharp, and full of control. Leo used the shield to protect the wounded and pushed back 2 attackers using a force baton. By the end, the hall was filled with smoke and silence. Vorin's people were defeated. Guards ran in. The royal army had arrived at last. Vorin was caught outside, trying to escape. Later that night, the fire was put out. Medics treated the wounded, and Nira stood before the royal council with Leo by her side. "This is proof," she said. "Vorin planned it all. The blackout, the attack, the lies." Velrin held up a recording taken from the enemy's own devices. "There is no doubt. Vorin will be judged by law." The council bowed in agreement. One elder stood. "Leo of Earth," he said, "tonight you risked your life not just for the princess, but for Velmora." Leo stepped forward. "I didn't do it for a title. I did it because it was the right thing." Velran nodded. "Sometimes that's what makes a real leader." Outside, the people of Velmora watched the news. They saw images of the battle, the fire, and the human who helped stop a traitor. Public opinion changed quickly. Where there was once fear, there was now respect. Many people began to say, maybe the crystal was right after all. Later, Leo stood with Nira on the tower balcony. The wind was cool, the stars bright. "You could have run," she said softly, "but you stayed." Leo looked at her, tired but calm. "I stayed because I believe in you." Nira smiled gently. "Tomorrow," she said, "the council will ask me to choose, not just for duty, but from the heart." Leo looked into her eyes, and, "What will you say?" She didn't answer right away. But in her silence, he saw the answer. The palace of Velmora stood tall and shining, but inside its halls, silence filled the air. Everyone waited for the day's announcement. After the failed attack by Vorin, the people began to see Leo in a new light. He was no longer just a human technician. He had fought with courage and protected their future queen. But the ancient traditions of Velmora were not so easy to forget. The royal council called a meeting in the Hall of Judgment. Princess Nira stood before the elders. Her face was calm, her hands folded in front of her. "Leo has proved his bravery," she said. "He saved lives. He acted with heart and honor." Counselor Velran nodded slowly. "That is true, but tradition demands more. Before a ruler is accepted by Velmora's people, they must pass the trial of the rings." Whispers spread across the chamber. The trial was rare, old and dangerous. "I will not force him," Nira said. "He must choose for himself," Velran replied. Nira left the hall and found Leo waiting near the garden. He was sitting under a tall, glowing tree, eyes closed, listening to the wind. "They want me to pass a trial now, don't they?" he asked, opening his eyes. "Yes," Nira said, sitting beside him. "It's called the Trial of the Rings. 3 tests, one for the heart, one for the mind, and one for the spirit." Leo smiled faintly. "Of course, because the explosions and sword fights weren't enough." "You don't have to do it," Nira said gently. "No one will blame you." Leo looked at her. "If I walk away now, it will always look like I didn't belong. I want to stand by you fully." She nodded slowly. "Then I'll stand by you." The next morning, hundreds of citizens gathered around the sacred arena of echoes, an ancient circular platform with 3 glowing rings carved into its floor. Floating cameras recorded every moment, broadcasting it across Velmora. Leo stepped into the center. He wore no armor, only a simple suit with a symbol of peace on his chest. Nira stood among the crowd, watching with quiet strength. The first test began. The mirror of truth. A tall silver mirror rose from the ground. Leo stepped in front of it. The mirror didn't show his body. It showed his fears. He saw Earth turning away from him. He saw Nira rejecting him. He saw people laughing, saying he didn't belong. Then he saw himself, walking away from the palace, alone. The voice of the trial spoke. "Do you accept your weakness?" Leo stared at the mirror. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm not perfect. I'm scared sometimes, but I still try. That's what matters." The mirror shimmered and faded into light. The crowd clapped softly. The first ring on the ground lit up with blue fire. The second trial began. The maze of Wind's Wind howled as walls rose around Leo, forming a shifting maze. The floor was uneven. Hidden fans blew strong gusts, pushing him off balance. The path changed every few steps. Leo moved slowly, using his senses. When one path was blocked, he turned back and tried another. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He remembered something Nira told him once. Not all strength is speed. Sometimes, strength is patience. After what felt like hours, Leo stepped out of the maze. His clothes were torn and his face was tired, but he smiled. The second ring lit, up with golden fire. The people began to cheer. Then came the final trial. The flame bridge, a narrow bridge, appeared over a pit of fire. It was long, high, and unstable. But there was more. The bridge had no guardrails, and the wind shook it with each step. Leo looked across it. The voice spoke again. Only those who carry purpose in their heart may cross. Turn back now if your soul doubts your path. Leo stepped forward. The bridge wobbled beneath him. Heat rose from below. His hands shook. The fire below reminded him of fear, of failure, of everything he never thought he could face. But step by step, he walked forward. He didn't look down. He thought of Nira. He thought of the people who once doubted him. He thought of the new friends he had made and the hope he had seen in their eyes. When he reached the other side, the last ring burst into bright white light. The trial was complete. The crowd stood and cheered. Some shouted his name. Others bowed in respect. In that moment, Leo became more than a guest. He became a symbol. Nira ran to him, joy on her face. He looked at her, sweat on his brow, hands trembling. "I didn't fall," he whispered. "You didn't?" she said, smiling. "You flew." Counselor Velran stepped forward. "The trials have been passed," he announced. "Leo of Earth has proven his heart, mind, and spirit. By the ancient laws, he is now worthy of the princess's choice." That evening, the palace held a celebration under the twin moons. Music filled the air. Food from across the galaxy was served. People from every part of Velmora came to see the man who had passed the trial of the rings. Leo stood in formal robes, looking around with quiet wonder. Nira walked beside him, wearing a dress of soft silver that shimmered like starlight. "Do you feel different now?" she asked. "A little," Leo said. "Mostly just tired." They laughed. "You've given my people something I couldn't," she said. "Hope." He looked at her. "And you gave me something I didn't know I needed, a reason to be brave." Their hands touched. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. The morning sun rose over the capital city of Velmora, casting golden light on its tall crystal towers. Today was not just a new day. It was a day of final decision. Inside the grand palace, the royal hall was filled with people from across the galaxy. Delegates, nobles, workers, and even children gathered to witness the moment everyone had waited for. Today, Princess Nira would make her final choice. She was no longer just a royal figure. After the attack, after Leo's bravery, and after the ancient trial of the rings, the people looked at her with deeper respect. And they looked at Leo, the human technician from Earth, with new eyes too. He had become more than a visitor. He had become part of their story. Inside her chambers, Nira stood quietly in front of a long mirror. She wore the traditional silver-blue gown of her ancestors. Her long hair was tied with threads of light, symbols of truth and leadership. Her closest advisor, Rima, stood beside her. "Are you sure of your heart?" Rima asked softly. Nira nodded. "I know what I feel, but this is not just about feelings. It's about the future of Velmora. Rima placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Then go. Speak with courage. And let your choice be your voice. Indai, another wing of the palace. Leo stood nervously in a waiting room. He had never worn royal robes before, and they felt strange. A part of him still wondered, how did a simple human like him end up in a moment like this? He looked out the window, at the crowds gathering in the square. Flags flew, music played. It felt like a festival, but he knew it was more than that. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Whatever happens, I was true to who I am." The royal drums sounded. The ceremony began. Nira entered the great hall, followed by the royal guard and the council. She walked up the long staircase to the high platform where the circle of choice stood. The people grew silent. Councillor Velran stepped forward and raised his voice. Today, as tradition commands, the Princess of Velmora shall make her final choice. She will decide not only her partner, but the path of alliance and future. He turned to Nira. Have you made your decision? Nira stepped into the center of the circle. She looked across the hall at the nobles, the council, the people, and finally at Leo, who now stood near the front. I have, she said clearly. A soft breeze moved through the hall, as if the planet itself waited. Nira raised her head. From the day I was born, I was told my path would be chosen by history, tradition, and bloodlines, she began. But history is not written only by those who follow the past. It is written by those who dare to make a new path. She paused. I was told the choosing crystal would guide me. It did, but more than that, life showed me a man who listens with patience, speaks with care, and stands with quiet strength. She turned toward Leo. Leo of Earth, you were not born of Velmora. You came here without expectation, without pride, and without any desire for a throne, yet you have shown more honor than many who wore crowns. The crowd leaned forward. With heart and mind free of fear, you passed our trials. You earned our trust, and you earned my respect. Leo stood still, his hands at his sides. Nira smiled. My choice is clear, she said. I choose Leo, not because the crystal chose him, but because I do. The hall was silent for a breath, then cheering, loud and strong. From nobles, from workers, from people young and old, they had seen everything. And now they saw something rare. A leader who chose from the heart. Leo stepped forward, slightly unsure. The guards opened the path. Nira held out her hand. He took it gently. You're sure about this? He asked quietly. Nira nodded. Yes. Together we'll build something new. Councillor Velran raised both hands. By the laws of Velmora, this bond is accepted. May it bring peace between worlds. The celebration began that evening. The sky lit up with peaceful lights, not fireworks, but glowing symbols of unity drifting through the air. Food, laughter, and music filled the streets. Children danced. Elders shared stories of change. Even some of the strict council members smiled and joined in the peace chants. Leo stood with Nira on the palace balcony, watching the joyful crowd below. This doesn't feel real, he said. It is, Nira replied, and now we shape what comes next. What happens tomorrow? We start building the new bridge between Earth and Velmora, she said. Not just with ships or science, but with trust. Leo looked at her with quiet wonder. I never imagined my life turning this way. Life is full of unexpected turns, she said. But sometimes, the most surprising ones lead us home. That night, under the twin moons of Velmora, a new chapter began. Not one of war or conquest, but of hope, unity, and the joining of two worlds. The stars watched silently, as they always had. But this time, even they seemed to shine a little brighter.